I'm Nicole Stone and I love sharing tips and tricks for new boaters and anglers. And in today's video, we're gonna go over 10 must-have boating accessories you should stock up on before you hit the water. Now, as somebody who's been in more than a few mishaps and been unprepared and had all sorts of disasters happen, I'm gonna tell you that having these accessories are gonna make a huge difference in making sure that you're prepared, organized, and safe, and following all regulations before you take your boat out on the water. Now, this video is brought to you by Go-To Marine. They are my one-stop shop for everything boating. You guys can check them out. You're going to be able to find everything you need, including the list of these items below at great prices. So be sure to check them out in the description below. And hopefully you'll learn a thing or two about some of these accessories you should have in your boat. And maybe you'll even find a couple fun ones that you haven't heard of before. Let's begin. So the first item I'm going to go over is a dock buddy. Now, these are going to be your simple solution from tying your boat up to the dock. Now, a lot of people just use rope, but I am notorious for a messy dock knot that doesn't exactly look pretty, work well, or make it quick for when I'm tying or untying, especially when I've got people lined up at the ramp and I've got to get going. So what I recommend doing is checking out these instead. These are going to allow you to simply hook under your cleat quickly from your boat to the dock. They're going to be very, very simple solution for when you quickly need to grab your truck or drop off your truck and jump back in the boat, or when you want to go up to a restaurant or see a friend or stop at a beach. These are a perfect solution for that. They're quicker, simpler, cleaner, easier to store. There's a million reasons why I prefer these over a traditional rope. Be sure to check out these dock buddies. They're perfect for the new boater who hasn't quite mastered a dock knot yet and wants to be able to quickly tie up and let go when they're out on the water. So the next item you should have before you take off is going to be a boat fender, or what I like to call a bumper. And these are a perfect way to protect your boat from scuffs. Now, a lot of times docks will have small bumpers on them to help protect your boat, and your boat may have a thin bumper on them to also protect your boat. However, I find that that's not nearly safe enough, especially when tying up on a windy day or overnight, and you really don't want to wake up and find that your boat is all scratched up. So that's where these come in. I think anybody that owns a boat has a couple on them. I like the smaller size. They're easier to store. They fit most of my needs, but there's a variety of brands and sizes that will work for your application, especially if you're needing something bigger for a bigger size boat. They also work great when you want to tie boat to boat and you don't want to scuff each other, which we do often in the spring when we are grilling out with our friends and family on the river. You can find a variety of these at Go-To Marine. They carry everything you can imagine for fenders and bumpers, including inflated, inflatable, you name it. You can check more about that out below. So my third recommendation is having a portable jump starter and battery pack on you at all times. Now, most people think of this when it comes to vehicles, and yes, it's nice to have on when you show up at the launch after a long day on the water and your battery's dead, but it's even better to have on your boat, because I know there's been numerous times where I've needed it because my boat cranking battery has died. I'm notorious for leaving my graphs on too long, forgetting them, showing up at a launch and not having a battery. And so this saves me every single time. Having one of these portable packs, they're really easy to use. They come with the jumper cables. You can also charge your phone. Just a fantastic accessory to keep on hand when you need it. And you guys can literally store them anywhere in your boat, and they don't take up much space. Just make sure they are charged before you hit the water. I like to recharge it every so many trips, and then I just keep it in my boat for emergencies. The next item that I want to talk about that is on the list is a life vest. I think this goes without saying, but in every area I'm aware of, you're required to have one at least in your boat. In many areas, you're required to wear them on plane. Now, if you have kids, you should have them on them at all times. Now, it's not always easy to find a great option for your child, but you can find a variety of these at Go-To Marine. I have the inflatable version for myself, and I just have an infant style for my 11-month-old daughter. The next item that I think all anglers and boaters need to have, and that is a law in many, many areas, is a fire extinguisher. Just because you're on water does not mean you are safe from those things. And the more electronics, batteries, things you got going on, the higher risk you run of having a fire, and that extinguisher can not only save your boat, but save your life. So be sure to always have one on hand. I think a lot of boaters don't think of that. I know when I started, I didn't, but in the state of Minnesota where I am, it is a requirement. It is a law. So make sure you have one. I've also, with old previous trailers, when I had a smaller boat, a cheaper boat, I did have a trailer start on fire once, and having a fire extinguisher is truly a must. So please get one. You guys can find a link to what I recommend below. And before you hit the water, make sure you just have one stored in your boat somewhere. You will thank me later. So that leads us to another must-have item in many states and areas, and that is going to be an anchor. Now, a lot of people think anchor, the trolling motor like I have spot lock, which acts as an anchor when I'm fishing, but it is not always reliable, and it is not the legal option either. In the state of Minnesota and many states and areas, it is law to have an anchor with you at all times. So of course, you're going to need to pair that with a rope, but make sure you have one. Find the right size for your boat and the waters you're fishing. More info of that below. You can click through and see the options for any boat size. And even if you have spot lock on your motor, I highly recommend that you get an anchor, no matter if it's a law or not in your area, because it can really save a day of fishing. It can even save your life in case you do have a failure across the motors and you are stuck and you're gonna need help. So get that anchor, get a rope to go with it. It's just one more item that you should have on you before you hit the water. Now, number 7 is gonna be a landing net. A lot of people overlook this one, but it is easy to go out fishing, forget your net, and catch into that fish of a lifetime. And for many species, you're using light enough setups, you're gonna need a net. But each application is gonna be different, whether you're fishing big fish like musky pike, whether you are instead focusing on something like walleye, panfish, think bluegill, crappie. They're all gonna have different requirements, different ideas, and you're gonna have different storage needs for it, depending on your boat size and just what you want your angling experience to be like. So I'm gonna list my favorites below. I highly recommend rubber, expandable, but Go-To Marine's gonna have each option that you need. So definitely get one. All you new anglers, you won't regret it. And it's one more way you can be prepared when you're on the water. Next, let's talk about a rope. You're gonna need a rope, not just an anchor rope, which we mentioned here, but a rope that you can use to tie up in emergencies or that you can use to launch and load the boat yourself. That is my go-to item. So having an extra rope, a main rope and an extra rope on hand is gonna be game-changing when you're in a pinch, whether you need to be towed because of an emergency or you need to launch and load with or without a dock. That rope is going to be a necessity, and I recommend having 2 just in case of an emergency. Now, they also can work as spare tie-ups for your boat, but the biggest thing for me is always having a rope on hand in case I need an extra one for an anchor, in case I am launching and loading alone, and then of course in case I need to be towed, which I definitely have needed to be towed before because I run out of gas or forgot my portable jump starter and I don't have a motor that will turn on. So all things to keep in mind when you are planning and before you hit the water. Get yourself a long rope to do these things. More options for your needs below. So the next item I want to talk about, and item number 9, is really just covering a lot of different accessories that could save you a day on the water. Now, one of the things I think of specifically that I keep spares on is a plug. I have broken plugs before, I've lost plugs before, they won't stay in, and that's a problem because to me that's a lost day on the water, especially if I traveled far and I can't find a place to pick one up. And if I have to find a place, I'm losing time. So keeping one on hand is always going to be key. What I recommend doing is I like to keep 2 on hand. They're very, very cheap, affordable. You can find the ones I like below. And you have them on hand because if you show up to the launch and your plug is missing, it's not working, your day is saved, and in an extra 30 seconds, you're ready to go. 10th item, of course there's many more than 10 I wish I could cover, but these are 10 essentials. It's gonna be a first aid kit. I never really had one in my boat until I ended up with a few hooks in my hands, stranded. I had to get that hook out myself, and there's nothing I needed more at the time than a first aid kit. So I highly recommend keeping this on you. Anything can happen when you're out fishing, but when you're dealing with hooks and scissors, pliers, things like that, accidents happen. And sometimes it's not a big deal, and sometimes it's a huge deal. And just having simple necessities when that happens can really save your day on the water, can save you. So be sure to keep a first aid kit on you, something I never did before that I had to start doing after I had a couple incidents of hooks in the finger where I had to get them out myself. And yeah, it wasn't fun and it wasn't pretty. So having a first aid kit is essential, but there's other things you guys need too. Like there's some areas where if you're fishing really big water, really remote areas, you need flares. There's lots of different items in that type of realm that you can also use that did not make this list because I don't particularly use them, but they're necessary in other applications of fishing and boating. So be sure to check out Go-To Marine, use code Nicole10 for a discount. And you know what items I might have missed in the comments below, what you would like added, changed, and any questions you may have.